Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver. How's it going, man? How are you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, Dortmund remain unbeaten this season, second in the table, and have earned themselves a much-needed rest after the Wolfsburg game. SchlotterBACK came, SchlotterBACK started, SchlotterBACK played all 90 minutes. There's some takeaways we'll talk about, but it's hard not to be positive right now. How are you?
Yeah, doing pretty good. And before you think maybe you missed an episode or two, Carver and I we had quite a busy week last week as Dortmund did too, kicking off the Champions League campaign. We weren't able to get together do an episode, so apologies for that. Apologies for coming back late. So we got a few games we're going to talk about. Of course, we got the away game at Heidenheim. Champions League kicked off with the exciting sad, just a few different ways you can look at this game, but away at Juventus, that 4-4 match. And then as Carver just mentioned, Wolfsburg over the weekend getting the 1-0 win. Not the typical battering we've given Wolfsburg over the last few years, but yeah, we're still, I think the last couple years looking back, like we've seen not even the cracks, but it's just been a rough start to the year where we know we should be doing better. And while match day one was a little disappointing, giving up that 2-goal lead away, yeah, we're kind of, I don't want to say cruising, but we're trending well, I think, especially with it being so early, sitting in second behind Bayern. And we do have a difficult stretch coming up. But yeah, I think it's a decent start to the season, especially with, we'll talk about the Champions League, but I think if you can get away, I was a little worried about playing away at Juventus anyways. And when you look at the grand scale of getting a point on the road in these Champions League matches, that's kind of what you want to get minimum, because we're going to have some difficult ones. But yeah, we'll talk about that more. But you want to start with Heidenheim, backtrack a little bit?
Yeah, sounds good. Dortmund were without a handful of really key players here. Enzo Mino in classic, I guess, Dortmund transfer fashion, really taken off the likes of Chukwuemeka in his loan spell. Plays one terrific game and then is out for the foreseeable near future, hopefully. And of course, Brandt as well was unavailable. Chan was unavailable. Duranville, Fabio Silva, SchlotterBACK, Sula. Long list here, which pushed Rierson to play at center half so early on in this season. Thankfully, Heidenheim were not really able to get into the game much before or after going a man down, but nonetheless, solid victory on the road here, missing so many key players. But yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounded like you just listed off a lineup, even though you were listing off like it was about the same amount of players.
It's our injured 11, man. We had that
11.
for like 2 seasons now.
So we'll get into the starting 11. Gregor Kobel in goal. Benzabaini, Anton, and Rierson are center backs. We had Finson at left wing back with Mecha and Gross in the middle. Kuto, right wing back. And then starting all three of our strikers, you could call them strikers. I know Bayer Adiemi could also play on the wing, but all three of our really top of the line attacking guys are getting to start with Bayer, Adiemi, and which I think this is a trend we've seen in the last few other matches too. When you look at the Fabio Silva signing, it's like, okay, this makes, we talked about it after bringing him in, where it does make sense to have that rest and rotation. But now we're seeing, yeah, these options. I think other options is, do you start Chukwuemeka there? Do you start Brandt a little higher? But seeing all three of these guys start, I don't love it, because it just gives you less options coming off the bench a little later. But any other thoughts on the lineup? And then I was going to mention too, Deont Ramai. I've been saying it so incorrectly for so long, which I figured I was missing it. I'm glad no one called me out until I watched this game and got the broadcast. And now thinking on it, it makes way more sense that it's Ramai with the J and not Ramaj. Always felt weird to me, but this one makes more sense. Deont Ramai, who's our goalkeeper on loan at Heidenheim, ends up having, I'd say, a pretty decent match, but cool seeing him starting goal.
Yeah. Well, to touch on your last point, not to double down on ignorance, but there are multiple ways to pronounce names as well. So we've, including myself, had plenty of blunders in the past, but at the same time, there's also been some names that are technically, I guess, sounding correct, depending on the fluctuation in just, whatever language you're speaking natively. But anyway, yeah, not too much in the formation or the lineup, standard 3-4-3, like you mentioned, against Heidenheim's 4-2-3-1, high pressing, aggressive disruption in Dortmund's build-up play. We kind of know what we're seeing or going to expect against Heidenheim. It's at this point, even though they've only been in the Bundesliga for a few years now, like I mentioned, Heidenheim didn't really have much of any control this game before or after the red card. Dortmund, on the other hand, did have a lot of control through the tempo of this, all really the whole game, despite maybe a few moments here on the counter. But I think there was some good opportunities in the first 15 minutes, really, that first quarter hour. Girassi was helpful and effective in his movement and his connection to midfield and those wide players around him. There was lots of movement and good ball movement around the box and in the box as well to generate some chances. And eventually, not long after that, Heidenheim go down a man, and Dortmund gain more or dig their claws deeper into this game to remain in control.
Yeah, we get the Girassi goal in the 33rd minute. Bayer gets a goal at the end of the first half. And then, my main takeaway from this game, and I know we're going to probably get into just on a time crunch and trying to cover 3 games. We won't go super in depth on all this. But my takeaway from this game was I was a little more disappointed in the second half. Like, I just want to see us go at it even, or at least get some more goals. I just remember feeling a little, as this game was over a week now, so hopefully I remember correctly. I just remember being kind of bored. Like in the second half, I'm like, come on, like, are we really not going to do anything else?
Yeah, we kept the ball well, and like I mentioned, we dictated the tempo, but Heidenheim, they get into those mid and low blocks, and it's hard for to break down. Of course, when they're trying, but eventually, they're going to try to find more space because they need some sort of results. And at times, they were trying to stretch us, and there were spaces for us to exploit on the counter there. But yeah, all in all, I share similar feelings. And I know Heidenheim even had like less than 5 spells of possession before going down to 10 men as well. So it was very much a game of Dortmund, trying to find those nooks and crannies to operate in, and they did find that at times against a very stubborn Heidenheim this game.
A few other things to hit on in this match, nothing too crazy. Cole Campbell getting some minutes, so I think this could be we've seen him on the bench quite a few times, and now he's one of those players where I look and just think, oh, you're so young, and I don't really expect much, but he came in the 74th minute, so not a ton of time, but some decent minutes in there. I think he's grown a little bit. He looked a little bigger than what I remember, so I'm excited. He is the U.S. prospect, so that makes it a little more exciting for a couple of reasons. But I am excited to see him get some minutes, especially if we're starting, like I said, Bayer, Adeyemi, and Girassi up top. The question is, who is that other winger that you can bring in and bring on?
Well, Cole Campbell, I know, is further down the pecking order, but like I mentioned before, there's plenty of other players that we do need to get back and healthy and then back up to speed, and that will take us really to the next level. And I think Duranville should be in that spot as being a game changer, maybe off the bench until he's able to retain fitness and then maybe even fight for a starting spot. Who knows?
And the only other thing I really had was I hate these away kits. I hate them. They're so
not
bad.
Good. They're not good. They've massacred our players on that one.
Do you have anything else, or you want to talk about Juventus?
Yeah, we'll touch on Juventus, sure.
All right. So, kicking off the Champions League campaign away at Juventus. Crazy game. 4-4. Second half was just
the tale of 2 halves.
Yeah. Second half really opened up. First half was not one to forget. I thought it was a bit back and forth. Like, you could tell teams are just kind of feeling each other out a bit. And then, floodgates open in the second half. But starting with the lineup, is it exactly the same?
It was unchanged.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Sabitzer comes in for Gross. Besides that, Binza Baini, Anton, Rierson, Kobel, Svensson, Kuto, Mecha, Bayer, Adeyemi, and Girassi up top.
Yeah, I actually thought it was a pretty similar looking first half to Heidenheim. Juventus were happy to let Dortmund have, larger spells of possession. I did think, going back, to the lineup, I was really thinking Chukwuemeka was going to get the starting spot over Brandt in this one. He impressed, and I think he deserved that spot. And especially with Brandt looking off pace recently, I think that was kind of a no-brainer. But either way, Dortmund were able to carry over their flow from the Heidenheim game. Like I mentioned, they had some good moments of counter pressing, preventing Juventus from sustaining attacks, especially in that first half. Yeah, very similar looking games until you get into the floodgates opening of the second half when it was end to end. Obviously, lots of goals. No one knew how it was going to end, and very chaotic and stressful for the Dortmund fan base, of course.
Yeah, Adeyemi starts the scoring in the second minute. We then see a worldie from Yildiz to get back into the game. Literally nothing Kobel can do. I think you could have maybe defensively put a little more pressure on him. You left him a little open outside the box, but it was still unbelievable goal from Yildiz. And then 2 minutes later, Mecha has also an incredible goal to give us back the lead. I'm reading through the lineup, but there's so many numbers, or not the lineup, but the score sheet, and see if I can get this. But then Vlahovic comes on and kind of changes the game for Juventus, where they score in the 67th. Kuto, kind of out of nowhere, has a crazy goal from a crazy angle, and then we get a penalty. I do want to talk about this penalty. I don't know if there's other like tactical stuff about the game you want to get into before I talk about the penalty, but did you have anything else?
It comes late in the game, obviously. I mean, all the frustration does. So sure, let's do it.
Uh, what what was going on with Benzabaini and Girassi on this penalty? Because you've seen this kind of stuff before, and it just I hate it. Like I hate these guys. Like there should be one penalty taker. It should be decided before the match. I don't know if it's something Kovac needs. Like, and I feel like it is Girassi just from what we've seen before. I don't know what the circumstances were in this situation to where Benzabaini was so adamant that he needs to take it. Girassi's then fighting him on it, and then Kovac. I think Kovac kind of gets involved. It looked like Brandt went over to talk to him to tell him what was going on. I don't know the situation. It just seems like a bad look. I know, like, we move on and we win at Wolfsburg and everything, and it doesn't seem like there's any tension there. Maybe I'm trying to pull drama out of something, but it was just so weird, and I hate seeing that. I don't know what any of this was about.
I don't have much insight, to be honest. There's probably something out there that I completely overlooked. Yeah, usually has been Garrissey, but there's just been some sort of change. I feel like he might have missed maybe one or two of the last few he had. I'll have to fact check myself on that. That might have been a driving factor, but either way, it's in the net at the end of the day, and I didn't read too much into it really at the time.
It was a very good penalty, I will say. It was excellent. It was just I hated seeing all that drama beforehand, and I mean, obviously we give up the 2 goals late, so you could again, maybe I'm pulling out too much drama out of it more than it needs to be, but then we go on to give up our 2-goal lead very late in the game. So I don't know if you're in the proper headspace after that, if that affected anything, who's to say, but I hated it. And then fast forward and get into stoppage time. I feel like at this point it feels a little like, oh my, yeah, we're gonna get away with this win, and then Vlahovic, that son of a bitch.
Of course, but it's really our own fault at the end of the day. It's pretty self-inflicted to put ourselves in such an unnecessary situation. I mean, Dortmund leading by 2 goals into stoppage time, like you mentioned. Turnovers in our own third, poor defensive assignments. You have the likes of Rierson going against a 6'3" target striker. There needs to be just better overall awareness from the players to kill the game, have, time management skills, awareness of the situation, like taking it to the corner. Benzabaini could have done a better job of maybe just clearing his lines, finding a more of a sure pass. It's very unnecessary, again, to even be in that situation to begin with, and to concede 2 goals in the dying minutes of game is really unacceptable. But thankfully, it's early days in the Champions League phase. It's something that we should be, at the end of the day, placing ourselves into the knockout stage regardless, hopefully. So, this doesn't affect us in our domestic aspirations or anything like that, because every point matters in the Bundesliga, obviously. And Kovac mentioned, too, at the end of the game in the post-match, just saying it was nerve-wracking. And he did still compliment the team for playing like that here in front of a very passionate and energetic crowd, and putting together a very solid first half to keep Juventus quiet and then score goals in the second. But, of course, we need to do a better job in those final minutes of the game.
Yeah, and again, as mentioned earlier, like starting, I think in this it's still kind of hard to figure out what this group phase round 1 kind of is, and like the best way to not approach it, but it's just you don't really know until you get to the last few match days, like how things might shake out, or how your draw is, or whatever, because not everyone is playing everyone else, and it's not I don't know, it's just a weird kind of phase. We're still learning as we go with it, but with that, like I think it's best, obviously, if you can just get your first win and kind of start with the 3 points. It's tough to do on the road, so I will take the point, and I'll feel a lot better about it if we in the next Champions League game coming up, I think it's October 1st, next Wednesday, if we can get that win at home. I mean, we got to get the win. You got to win your home games, right? And I think that's even more so important in this weird phased round.
Thankfully, yeah, we have a bit of a break. Again, Dortmund have a very much deserved rest here, and just having mindset the weekend now, and they don't have to worry about midweek football, because the Dortmund did, for the most part, take their energy and transition it from game to game here. But you saw those, the last 30-40% of the game against Wolfsburg, not to get too ahead, that you saw a lot of tired legs. And even this game, I think there was some mental lapses because of that fatigue from just so much football in such a short span of time, and having little to no rotation in certain positions. But it's still not really an excuse given the professionalism and the status of some of these players. I mean, you have in that last goal Brandt walking from attack to defense transition to defending. I mean, the whole time he's walking. Svensson doesn't foul, which you could argue he could be doing a better job of just not letting play continue there. But the whole team, it's not something to single out on. Yes, you could look at some of those things and dissect, but at the end of the day, it's a collective understanding and having the right intention to just shut shit down in those last few minutes.
Yeah, and we've talked about it so much, but now we'll start to see the effects of it, I guess, with this like lack of squad depth that we always talk about. We love talking about it because it seems like it's Dortmund's biggest problem, especially as we mentioned, when we're playing the same attacking three every few weeks. We do have the break coming up now, or not every few weeks, every few days.
Every few days, yeah.
Every few days. We do have the break now, but as we mentioned, Fabio Silva coming in will help be able to give Girassi some rest. Maxi Bayer could play up there too if he's getting rest elsewhere. But going into the Wolfsburg match, we can talk about this one and the lineup, because I think our midfield, we actually have good depth there, and we've been seeing a decent rotation there already. Maybe the lack of depth, I think you could argue the lack or the quality in depth could be stronger, but we do have a good amount of players to rotate in and out there.
Well,
especially with that kind of two-man midfield that can change a little bit depending on who one of those higher attacking players is, if it's Brandt or Chukwuemeka playing more of it as a 10. But it is the other positions where even on the wing backs, and then jumping into Wolfsburg, SchlotterBACK is officially back. We probably should have just started the episode right there. Mother effing SchlotterBACK is back. Ain't no SchlotterBACK girl. So thankfully, one, it's so big to have him back in this team, and it does give you a little extra depth in that back line. He's not the depth piece, but that just gives us a little
he's just a little more the piece, period. I mean, he is the back line, and that's not a disrespect to the other players, but just shows how high of a quality and how much of a drop off there can be between him and some of the other players in the back line. I mean, he's not only a major factor in stabilizing the defense, an already pretty decent defense this season, but his abilities to provide those diagonal and vertical passing options, either to Rierson out wide or Girassi here in the central channel. We saw both of those a lot of this Wolfsburg game. It's very unique. It's very special. And yeah, super, super happy to have him back. And again, just like back in December, whenever he had that insane injury, and then he started I think it was against Wolfsburg at the weekend. Am I crazy? I think it was, just a reverse fixture in that last season. I had no idea how he was back in time. I think the original ETA on this was late October, something like that. And here we are, him starting in mid to late September.
Crazy. Starting and going the full 90 is absolutely
and not
insane.
Looking out of pace either, right?
No.
He looked like he hasn't missed a single second.
Usually the biggest conversation point is like when players are coming back from injuries. And it's something that I think you hear from coaches if you listen to press conferences, where they always maybe undersell a little bit, or like try not to put too much pressure on players when they're coming back from injury. And one, you don't want to just throw them into the deep end fully, because depending on how they've been recovering from that injury, it makes sense if they're not fully fit to play a full 90. But for SchlotterBACK there was a quote after the match, I think, where it was like, he said, "Coach asked me how long I could play, and I just said, just put me in the lineup." And I love that.
He's got that dog in him.
I love it, and I love the fact that he was able to just go. And like you said, he was not out of pace at all. Like, he was just ready to go. We got SchlotterBACK back, and it's very good. And back to the conversation about just rest and rotating players, I think it's important too. Like, I'm not saying we rotate guys every match where we're changing the back line completely, but it's like you play SchlotterBACK for, as an example, maybe give him 60, 75 minutes, and then you can sub him off and you can bring on someone else. I also know the back line and center backs, like, you don't always want to shop and change center backs even in the middle of a match. But if you can give Girassi some rest up top, if you can just give guys some extra rest, that'll then allow them to play longer and better, hopefully, when you're playing these games every few days.
I think you'll see a lot of that going forward in the next 2, maybe 3 weeks. We're expected to see a handful of players in those roles to be back in some sort of level of fitness, contributing anywhere from 5, 10, 15 minutes a game here in the next few weeks, hopefully. So yeah, we'll see, but things are looking up, not only in the terms of results, but just available personnel being back. But just in the general scheme of things here going into this, I found it interesting that Wolfsburg and Dortmund were both one of the very few unbeaten sides in the Bundesliga still going into this fixture. Beating Wolfsburg at home is routine at this point for Dortmund. We've won 7 of our last 7 games at home against Wolfsburg between the two sides, conceding just 1 goal. And it's usually a lot of goals scored too. I mean, it's not uncommon this one obviously didn't fit the bill for that, but these 4, 5, 6 nils against Wolfsburg is not too uncommon either in just the past few years. And once again, you saw, I think, the energy kind of translate and right from the start of this game with positive starts from the individuals, but also the collective intention. You saw Adeyemi get off a shot here in just like 105 seconds into the game. I don't think it actually ended up hitting the frame at all, but it was close. And again, I appreciate that, with the form that he's in, but also just the form that the team is in, we didn't wait for the game to come to us.
Yeah, and I will go through the lineup. It's kind of the same. Kobel in goal, SchlotterBACK. We did talk about where we're going to see Benzabaini, what it means for him with SchlotterBACK coming in, but he still stayed in that back line with SchlotterBACK playing in the center, Anton, and then Benzabaini. Rierson gets his start on the wing back, which I was impressed isn't the right word. I was just really happy to see him there, and I was just happy to see Rierson doing his Rierson things. I know he had to play center back the last couple of matches, so it was good to see him back in that role where he can get a little higher up on the pitch, just kind of go at people and be really aggressive and then yell at the ref nonstop, which is always great. Sabitzer and Mecha in the middle with Svensson, our left wing back. Adeyemi, Bayer, and Girassi, the trio up top again.
Yeah, not too many thoughts on the lineup. It's pretty standard. Nothing's really changed too much besides a pick here and there these past few other games that we talked about in this episode. Besides a positive start from Dortmund, on the other side of things, Wolfsburg didn't really have many ideas going forward besides playing direct so early on. And BVB, they were able to remain in control once they weathered that storm, and with the positive start that they had, despite only a narrow lead, and having a scare or two, there wasn't really much for us to worry about these whole 90 minutes. And even Wolfsburg coach mentioned that too, how Wolfsburg remained very passive the first 45 and did take a bit more initiative and was a bit more creative when they were in possession in the second half. It just wasn't really enough to challenge us much. And Kovac was very happy and praised the players as well in that same sense. I did find Bayer to be a bit quiet. He had some half chances here and there these past few games, but he's not as involved as I'd like to see him and that we have seen him in recent months. So, but thankfully, with Adeyemi being in red hot form, it's just kind of one switches off, one switches on, and Fabio Silva coming back here in the next few weeks, that could be a good breeding ground for some healthy competition as well. Not to single out Bayer, but I got another thought or two, but I just want to toss it over to you.
Yeah, I'm glad Bayer got his goal in the Juventus match. That I was kind of feeling the same a bit. I think in this game, yeah, you still feel a little underwhelmed with him or hope he can crack on a little more. But that's why I was happy to see the Juventus match. I thought that was going to be the spark to kind of get him going. Obviously, Girassi's been in his goal scoring form. He doesn't get the goal in this match. He had a couple chances, one towards the end that I feel like he probably should have passed, chipped it back into the box and goes for goal, which, I mean, if that slide doesn't come in or is mistimed a little bit, I think he would have had a really good chance to score that. But yeah, Bayer, I hope we can see more from him. I think if we can, again, rotate is just the word of the last few years. If we can rotate, that helps too. And it's easy. I think you could, I know I'm pretty hot and cold on Adeyemi. Oftentimes I'm pretty high on him, even when other people aren't, but him getting the goal in this match definitely think helps put him above Bayer, obviously. But I'm curious to what people think if you're comparing the two. Maybe you take the goal out of it. Like when you look at the rest of their performance overall, would you rather have, is it Bayer or is it Adeyemi? Again, that's hard to say when Adeyemi gets the goal in this match. But
I heard you say Bayer scored. I think Adeyemi scored in the Juventus game, and that makes 4 goal contributions in his last 3 games, not only with the 2 goals, but 2 assists as well. So he's been contributing a lot here in that front line. And we'll see Bayer come back to, he's just kind of still, I mean, he's got 2 goal contributions as well this season. So, nothing that is too concerning, but I just found him a bit quiet in this Wolfsburg game.
Bayer, I
Go
did
ahead.
say Bayer and Juventus. I meant Bayer in the Heidenheim match.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Only other thing I really had in this game, people obviously have noticed this for these opening handful of fixtures across all competitions this season, is that we're not, or we should say, Sabitzer has been starting over Bellingham as of late. And I don't find that too surprising because Job is going to take some time to obviously raise to this level and just acclimate himself into not only the country, not only the club, but just the system, the team with the players, everything. And, you know, that it's going to be an investment for 2-3 years into the future. If we don't, you know, he doesn't explode and we get a lot of money from him in classic Dortmund fashion. But it's frustrating though, because you're looking at that, all that to say, Sabitzer starts over Bellingham and he's like a almost $30 million investment from the club. And yet we're hearing from the likes of Sebastian Kehl and other people higher up at the club these past 8, 10, 12 months saying how tight of a budget Dortmund has. But then whenever we splash on these players that are not like making an instant impact, you know, there are other teams in the Bundesliga that I've mentioned before, a handful of them. Even Leverkusen, for someone that wins the league, some of their players that are making impacts are not bought for a lot of money, you know. So Dortmund need to continue being bold in the transfer market to look at these smaller markets and smaller leagues and find these gems because they're there. And yes, it's obviously takes work and it's a lot easier, a lot more difficult than I'm making it sound, but it happens. And Dortmund has a very extensive documented history of it happening in the past. Even at recently with Svensson, there just needs to be more signings like that because I'm not finding it acceptable really that it's the constant excuses of not having enough money, but then you splash on a player like that that's going to take time, a good amount of time to really make an impact. And that's fine for Joe, but you know, the strategy I think needs to shift a bit.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about the midfield in this match and specifically Sabitzer because I think he has been really, really good. Um, and to the point of Job getting in the team, like you're not. I don't think you're getting in over Sabitzer. I know he's been subbing on for Mecha. I don't know if that's a complete like for like, but I do think it's a little like similar. I think Mecha's been pretty good in these last couple games. I thought he was really good in the Juventus match. Like even before the goal, like I thought he was great. He was probably my favorite player on the pitch. And I think when you're seeing Job come in, if he can kind of continue on this positive trend that Mecha kind of laid the groundwork for in these matches, then that's a positive thing. But to your point, to the price thing, it is interesting to see, is there another, I think you kind of spend for the name, right? Which is why Job also put his name on the back, his first name and not Bellingham. But that's seems to me we spent for the name. We spent because of what Jude did. And yeah, is it gonna and because of that too, like you want to see him playing more or you want to see him have an instant impact. It is frustrating. He is still so young. Even though we did see Jude at this age doing the Bellingham things that we all knew and love.
Yeah.
And so it is frustrating because I think, to your point, more about, I don't think I'm frustrated at Job necessarily, but it is the board.
It's not directed him. It's at the squad planning.
It's in them saying, we're really tight on money. And then, oh, but we spent all this money on this guy. And my question is, could you have
Bayer was a big signing too, and it's a very similar kind of purchase, right? I mean, Bayer and Bellingham both very promising in the next year or so, and of course Bayer's got a little bit more time under him now, but it's a very similar kind of situation.
I think my big question is, could you have found another, looking in the exact same pool, could you have found a central midfielder in the championship that is in the name Job?
It doesn't even have to be in the championship.
Way less money.
It doesn't have to be in the championship. It could have been anywhere.
Just similar player profile and spent maybe 10 million, 10, 12 and get the same output that we're getting right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
All right. I did like Sabitzer in this match too, and I've been liking what I've seen from that match. I think those are a nice positive. And I earlier talking about the I don't know exactly how I phrased it, but the lack of quality in depth. I don't hate seeing, if we're looking at Oshane and like just a holding six, I don't think we're playing a system where you really have that necessarily. I wish it was someone higher quality than Oshane, but I do like that option in the like late in the game when you just need to shut it down, bringing on that really defensive-minded 6 into the match just to kind of keep things quiet. And that's where, because I was thinking about that in the Wolfsburg match when Oshchan comes on, it's like maybe I want to see someone a little better, but yeah, that's where it's nice to have those depth pieces to bring in and change the game a little bit.
I could totally see in the not so distant future, and I positive I mentioned this before as well, of a midfield of Mecha and Bellingham. I mean, both very similar player profiles, both very tall and strong physiques. They're both very athletic. They're smart on the ball. They can connect both the attack and the defense. So that's definitely a midfield. I think that could be finding some consistent minutes and chemistry and success in the future, but not right now. We need to be investing money of that large of sums and pools into players that can be not ready to go, but make more of an instant impact.
I know we didn't see him in the Wolfsburg match, but kind of on the same topic of just money spent. What are your thoughts on Couto so far this year?
Well, I mentioned before, he's got a lot more of the freedom to show his more creative skills, and I think he had a lot of great movement in the Heidenheim game and helped with our ball retention and finding some good crosses, well-driven crosses right across the 6. He obviously got himself involved with some goal contributions and scored against Juventus. The defensive mental lapses I still have concerns about. Of course, him shutting down the game against Juventus too, or lack thereof, is something also to take note of too, that comes from just not having the best awareness. But I think he's going to be solid backup for Rierson, and there needs to be more investment in those wing back departments. Really, if that's the system we're sticking with.
Yeah, and we have been seeing positive signs from Couto. Obviously, like we said, he gets the goal in the Juventus match, and I do like the dynamic of. I don't know if it's necessarily do you choose Rierson or Couto. It's just kind of how you want to approach the match, because Couto can just fly up the wing. Not that Rierson doesn't, but he's just got different skill sets. And so if you really need to go all out attacking, then I think Couto's a nice option. It's just nice to be able to, I think, change it up on those two sides. And then the reverse of that is on the left side. We just got Svensson, which he's just kind of chugging along doing his thing. I really hope he doesn't get injured, because I know we could put bids up Amy out there
for months and months and months now.
Yeah. Anything else from Wolfsburg you want to get into looking ahead at Mainz a little bit?
Yeah, and to I guess touch on that last part too. Kovac has actually mentioned that he's aware of the fact that Svensson has played every match of football for Dortmund in such a long time now, but he's confident that he can continue going, and that's just the kind of player and in person he is. So I hope that's all accurate.
I mean, I don't know what other options he has. I don't know. That's kind of his point. Maybe he's trying to make a point to the board. It's like, I'm just going to keep playing him until he gets hurt. All right, so Dortmund, as you said, we remain unbeaten, and this coming Saturday, September 27th, Dortmund is away at Mainz. It is a 9:30 Eastern kickoff, 8:30 if you're here in St. Louis with Carver and myself. And then just a few days after that, Wednesday, again, is the Champions League match, home hosting Athletic Club Bilbao. And then just looking ahead after that, just the run of games we have Leipzig the following weekend, and then away. Well, there's an international break, and then we got Bayern. So I'm glad those matches aren't just like back to back. We got a little time in there. I never love coming out of an international break and playing Bayern right off the bat, but that tends to happen for the most part. But thoughts on Mainz this weekend?
Yeah, first and foremost, no Jonathan Burkhardt to score against us, so that's going to be very nice, having a little bit more room to breathe there. Mainz are an interesting one this season. They've lost both their home games so far, one against Köln, recently promoted Köln. We know that a lot of their play is going to be channeled through their midfield from the likes of Amiri and Sano as well. Kovac has mentioned and praised the players for being very compact these first few games, but that has to remain true against an opposition like this that is not going to get many shots off, but score when they do.
I know we were talking about Mainz, but I was just, when you mentioned them playing Köln, and I was just checking the table because I haven't checked it in quite a bit. Köln sitting in fourth. We're going to have to get Jake from 50 Plus Donor. Not that he supports anyone in particular, but we're going to have to talk to that guy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't really have anything else on Mainz. Like, I expect us to go in and win this game. Have we only drawn on the road? No. Okay. We won at Heidenheim. I'm like, are we cursed? Yeah. Are we just going to draw on the road? I think given our progression, the state of things right now, I expect to fully go in and win this game. I want to see us do it with just comfortably. I just want a nice, comfortable win. I don't want to get to the second half.
That's a big ask. We've struggled on the road against Mainz these past few meetings. Mainz have scored 6 goals on us in the last 2 times they played us at home, and we've only scored 1. And I know that's only a small sample size, but Mainz are typically a team that are capable of really giving us a run for our money in recent years.
So looking back to 2023, we did beat them on the road 2-1. Yep. We then drew them at home 2-2, and tied them 1-1. We lost 3-0 in 2024.
Yep.
And then 3-1. I don't want to talk about it.
We don't have to. Let's look forward.
Yeah, I mean, anything else coming up after the Mainz game?
Yeah, keep your eye on the FRAUEN, who have bounced back. I know I mentioned last time that they won 7-0 against Gladbach too, so they've beaten both the Gladbach teams. They also came back into their domestic league and has won as well, and they're climbing back the table despite a stumble at the start. So keep an eye on them, and I'll have another more thorough update here once they get these next few games under their belt.
And if you want to learn more about BVB FRAUEN, or just if you want to get connected with us, you can join our Discord. You can find the link and get connected with other Dortmund fans, whether they're here in the States or over in Europe. Got a really cool community over on our Discord. So you can find the link in the description of this episode. And that's it, I think, for this time. We appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. Sorry for the delay. Sorry we had to take a week off, but we'll be back. I don't want to make any promises, but we'll be back sometime. We'll be back. We appreciate you guys.